我们开始进行这个正式的亚洲人权跨世纪的对话。今天的这个主题呢，就是我们要来对谈一下这个亚洲人权跨世纪对谈，谈的是呢青年与动荡国际秩序中的人权实现跟挑战。好，那我们大概有几个主题，希望就各自的立场谈一谈，在你所处的国家近期的政治跟地缘变化怎么样影响到人权的情况。第二个呢，就是谈一下青年怎么样去对抗权力侵害跟民主的倒退。第三个呢，就是想要来谈一下你怎么样看待人权在后疫情跟数位时代中的变化。我们请每位讲者有5到8分钟的时间来简要的开场。对，所以我们先请这个我这个赖佑豪来语谈。
Hi everybody, I'm Yo Hao. Let me introduce myself a bit. So I'm a practicing lawyer in Taiwan, but I'm currently based in DC. So if anyone have a chance to come to DC, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. We can have a coffee chat or get food over there. So that's basically what I'm doing right now. I'm working for a think tank called SEASAT, which is a newly established government think tank in Taiwan. But today, once again, thanks for the invitation from NHRC for having me here. Actually, I don't know what generation I represent, so I will only represent for myself. I don't even represent the organization I'm affiliated with. So today I'm gonna only share some organization I have. And because the organizer assigned us 3 questions as a background, to give you some background information. So I will start that in the following. For the first question is in my own country, how have recent geopolitical and political shifts affect the state of human rights? And I want to share 2 important trends in Taiwan. So the first is that since 2024, we've once again had a divided government, meaning that the executive and the legislature controlled by different political parties. And so because of that, over the past, we've been witnessing the intense political conflict over the past year. But what does that matter for human rights? I believe that matters in the sense that because they are 2 important constitutional institutions, that their main mission is human rights protection, they have been seriously weakened because of that. The first one is Taiwan's Constitutional Court. And I personally worked for that court for a few years before, so I know how important it is. It might be one of the most important institutions and also maybe the final safeguard for human rights in Taiwan, and making various landmark rulings throughout the past decades, including legalizing same-sex marriage and also reviewing the constitutionality of death penalty last year, something like that. But late last year, a legislature in Taiwan raised the voting threshold of the court, and also blocked the justice appointments of it. So that basically paralyzed the court, because after that it has not been able to issue any substantive rulings this year for more than half a year. So that's one thing. That is the first institution. The other institution is actually the control yuan. Control yuan has a power to impeach most officials in Taiwan and also houses and HRC. So you can see how important it is for human rights protection in Taiwan. But its budget was cut by 96% this year. That basically severely hampered its daily operation. So I feel like it's still really lucky to have all of colleagues from NHRC here today to have this event. It is extremely difficult to see this happen in this current situation. So that is the first thing I want to share. The second trend is that I'm witnessing the growing tension between national security and civil liberties in Taiwan. And in case like anyone here doesn't know, we are actually meeting here in a place that the economists called the most dangerous place on earth. And to some extent, that is true. Because like China has been sending military aircrafts and ships over Taiwan every single day. And it is also reportedly that China's infiltration has even reached the presidential office of Taiwan. So you can see how urgent and how serious the national security risks are in Taiwan's current situation. But on the other hand, the growing national security concern can also erode civil liberty. One prime example is that in this March, Taiwanese government revoked the visa of a Chinese influencer, Yaya, and also deport her back to China. And because she posts videos on Douyin supporting China use of force to take over Taiwan. And you can see how hard, from this case, you can see how hard it is to balance free speech and her family rights to but on the other hand, to stop war propaganda, which is clearly banned under ICCPR. So that is something I want to share, like for the first question. And I don't know how much time I have, so like please stop me if I already like run out of my time. So the second question is, what role have the young people played in pushing back against rights violation or democratic decline? And I can only speak for Taiwan's experiences again. And for this question, I will share some observations of Taiwan's current mass recall movement. And I believe this is a good example to debate if it is an action trying to push back a potential democratic backsliding in Taiwan. And in case like anyone doesn't know, like actually this summer in Taiwan, Taiwanese voters are gonna decide if they are going to recall almost 30 district lawmakers from legislature's majority party. And this happens because some citizens in Taiwan, they think the expansion of legislative power is to the extent that, okay, 30 minutes, is to the extent that they can't tolerate anymore. So citizens across the country mobilized, they took on the street to trying to collect signatures to meet the requirement to initiate recall vote. And most of the volunteers from those groups, they are almost in their 30s. And one thing from a news source, something interesting to me is that it says about 90% of them are women. That is something really interesting to me. But like, I personally think this movement is really about stopping democratic backsliding in Taiwan in the sense that it helps to continue the checks and balances under Taiwan's constitutional system. And as a legal scholar, my own research tells me that Taiwan's constitutional system has some long-standing flaw in the sense that it lacks strong checks and balances between the executive and legislature. So especially when it comes to the divided government, like now, the Constitutional Court actually serves as a important and maybe the only effective mechanism to check the potential abuse of political power. But as I mentioned, the court itself is already paralyzed for months. So the final mechanism for checks of political power is gone as well. So I believe like we all know that as a believer of democracy, without meaningful checks and balances, constitutional democracy is only an empty shell. So if the Taiwanese system or Taiwan as a political community wants our democracy to survive, we need to find a way to react to continue the checks and balances under the current constitutional system to let the democracy alive. So that's how I see the recall movement at this moment. I mean, it actually served as a de facto vote of no confidence in the current legislature in Taiwan, meaning that people like Taiwanese citizens are leveraging or reorienting the existing constitutional tools like recall rights to try to continue the checks and balances and try to push back against the potential abuse of power from the legislative side. But this is a question open to debate, and we can continue observe what this recall movement's outcome is. It is upcoming in this July and also in this August. And time's up. Okay, I will leave my third question, and maybe the professor who can talk more about that.
好，谢谢主持人王副主任委员。同时呢，也非常谢谢我们萧董事长，还有亚洲交流基金会杨执行长的邀请，让我今天可以代表台湾民主基金会，然后来参与今天这么盛大的一个这个 camp 那今天非常荣幸有这个机会来跟青年人一起来进行交流。那我想我今天切入的点因为我自己是一个 political scientist by training， 那我也是这个政治大学在政治大学任教。所以我大概会切入的2个主要的观点，一个是比较的观点，另外一个呢，则是这个国际关系的观点，来跟大家一起讨论。整体而言，我想在印太地区的人权发展的状况，在过去这1年当中，其实面临一个比较大的环境因素，也是环境上的变化。这里面最主要就是美中之间的竞争关系。美中之间的竞争关系，使得正好像刚才我们前一位讲者友豪所提到的，就在这过程当中，国家安全跟人权的保障，它就成为看起来它会出现 trade off 的现象，而不是像过去这个没有外在威胁的时候，大家有比较多的空间来进行讨论。所以在这样的背景之下，我观察到当前在印太地区有关于人权的发展上面，大概有5个令大家感到比较忧心的趋向。我想第一个呢是这个公民社会的空间的缩减，还有许多国家对于所谓异议分子的一个压制。那这里面呢，我们可以看到有非常多的，比方大家会非常清楚的就关注到中国的人权状况。实际上，中国的人权状况在过去这1年当中，伴随着中国自己本身经济情况的不确定性升高，还有美中之间的这样子的一个冲突紧张的关系，所以我们看到的是，在这里包括他对于异议分子的压制，还有在新疆、西藏等地，他对于这个人权上面的一个压制，这个情况呢，基本上应该是越来越严重。如果我们跟历年相较，那另外呢，就是我们也注意到，在其他的国家当中我们现在很多时候在讨论所谓的democratic backsliding， 就是民主国家的衰退。那同一个时间，我们也注意到，在这些众多的指标里面，有一个非常非常重要，就是对于异议人士的一个容忍，还是说它是采取比较更压制的一个手段那这样的现象其实持续的在印太地区出现就这样的一个压制现象持续出现。第2个趋势呢，我们可以看到就是政治上的这个不稳定，还有甚至有武装冲突的情况发生。我们都知道，武装冲突的情况发生的时候呢，其实很多学者他们做过研究，他对于不管是 ethnically 的 minorities， 或者是女性，或者是幼童，它其实会带来更多的冲击以及不安全。那同样的政治上的不稳定，那甚至于这个内战，比如说缅甸的情况，从2021年开始，就是国际之间关注的一个焦点。那近几年也透过因为有新媒体的这个帮助也让国际社会更进一步的能够了解缅甸当地的人权状况。 我们知道的是军政府的这个做法，可是实际上呢，我们也知道军政府所控制的地区跟不是军政府其他的这个军事力量所控制的地区，其实都同样的有进行这个人权迫害的这样的一个状况发生。那这个自然就是政治不稳定，甚至武装冲突所带来的一个冲击。那当然，最近的武装冲突就是我们大家所熟知的，在印度跟巴基斯坦之间那我觉得像这些部分都加剧了这个区域的这个不稳定的情况。自然在两岸之间，这个中国跟台湾之间的一个互动的情况也是如此我们面临非常强大的在武力上面的一个来自于中国方面的一个威胁。第三个趋势呢，则是对于所谓的 marginalized groups 他们所受到的他们的脆弱性，我觉得这个也是大家进一步值得注意的地方。这里面包括刚才前面我所提到的女性、幼童等等，另外就是包括 LGBTI+ 的这个人士他们其实在不同的国家，因为有不同的文化以及社会情况，所以他们的这个所面临的这个挑战仍然是非常非常的多，这个也是特别要值得注意的。另外还有一个，也是去年下半年开始国际社会所注意到的，我们称之为 Democracy Advocates at Risk， 也就是在相对封闭的政治体系当中，有一些不同意见的人，他们其实因为当地政府对他们言论上面的压制，或者人身上面的一个这个安全以及自由上面的侵害，使得他们必须要到其他的国家去寻求协助。那目前我们也都知道，其实在疫情之后，很多国家的国境管制到现在政治的考量等等，使得他们要离开他们原来的国家，本身已经不是一件非常容易的事。再加上这些各国所加的限制，使得他们面临更大的一些挑战。那第四跟第五个部分这里面最主要就是包括在经济跟社会权利，还有这个对于所谓侵犯人权 abuse 的这些暴力行为它往往这个没有办法有效的进行究责，然后民众的教育权跟居住权在相当多的国家里面，它也受到了一些这个侵害跟影响。像这些地方，我觉得都是我们值得进一步注意的部分。那再来一个，我想我用很快的时间跟大家说明一下，因为刚才友豪也有提到，就是 mechanism 的部分那其实，在印太地区，我们现在看到就是它有政府跟政府之间对于保障人权、提倡民主之间的一些合作关系。不过这个地方呢，因为这个过去的这几个月当中，我们看到由于过去我们大家所这个仰赖的，也就是 City upon the Hill， 美国这边它的政策上面有出现一些调整。那在调整的过程当中，它增加了许多伙伴在追求跟推进民主上面的不确定性。那这个地方呢，也是值得我们注意的。那在所谓 NGO 的合作上面呢，我觉得在台湾有许多的 NGO， 包括了像我们台亚交流基金会，还有包括台湾民主基金会等等，我们都在不同的这个议题领域里面试图来贡献台湾过去的经验，还有对于人权民主上面的保障，我们可以提供哪些这个借鉴来给大家做一个参考。我想这个部分，我想台湾是 step up。希望能够在不确定的年代当中，尽量扮演一个稳定的力量。我想我第一轮的发言就在这边先告一段落，谢谢。
这个国际特色组织峰会的秘书长邱秘书长，
谢谢幼玲姐。那因为刚刚其实两位。不管是老师，然后或者是这个友豪，其实都已经讲了蛮多的，所以我想我尽量就不重复了。不管是刚刚提到的中国对台湾的军事威胁，或者是美国川普上台之后这整个新的威权主义实践的兴起，那带动的整个不管是 USAID， 就是美国的这个国际人道救援基金的就是被裁减，那其实也导致了非常多亚太许多国家的这个比较小的 NGO 就是他们的资金受到很大的影响，那包括他们整个这个怎么组织如何运作下去，甚至有一些，甚至我们看到在缅甸地震，然后很多地方本来是仰赖这些，可能在发生这些灾难的时候是可以有一些救援的，那可是也看到说，正因为美国的这样的整个全面的对于人权人道的整个倒退跟缩减，其实它反而也去让中国有更进一步的更大的空间在亚太地区可以扮演 更重要的影响的角色。那我觉得这个部分是我们认为其实是反而是在整个美国这样的一个威权主义的兴起的过程里面，其实是我们会很担心的。就是除了当然中国很直接对台湾的军事威胁，这个造成了台湾本身的可能很多人的这个身心的状况啊，或者说大家可能也有一些寒蝉效应，很多的言论可能不敢讲啦，然后或者说我们看到甚至在国会里面的这些状况，那也导致我们很多人权的法案其实都没有任何的进展。那刚刚可能我们的 keynote speaker 也有都提到，我们的在移工跟我们的难民、寻求庇护者的等等的这些相关的保护机制跟法案，其实都还没有一些。就是最近 CNN、BBC 也才刚刚又报道了渔工的议题哈，那这些其实都是一直以来没有解决的问题哦。那也都一直就是也因为这些，不管是这个中国持续的这样的一个威胁，导致其实整个国家我们现在也比较多的整个精力上面，其实是花在讨论这个国安的议题上面，那或者是说，我们好像看到比较多的是这个政治上面的一些对立啊，跟分裂啊等等，那比较难看到是说，人权的法案可以怎么样的可以有所进展哦？那我觉得这个是对于台湾，那甚至是亚太的人权，其实是一个蛮大的威胁哦。因为刚刚也有提到，台湾在亚太地区其实扮演的是一个蛮重要的人权的一个 leader 的一个角色。我们的同婚合法也让其他蛮多国家跟着有了一些进展哦。可是如果我们在其他的人权议题上面，我们迟迟的没有进展，甚至我们还跟着现在川普政权的这种反人权的、反移民的、反LGBTI 的反跨性别的这样的一个政策去走的话，那这个也可能会影响到亚太的整个人权的状况，是可能是整个完全倒退的。那当然我们也看到说，的确在这个过程里面，在这几年的很多的不管是刚刚提到的缅甸的政变之后啦，或者是说就是在亚太地区还是有蛮多的这个年轻人，甚至可能等一下两位panelist 也会分享，可能马来西亚或者是其他的国家也是有一些蛮重要的，就年轻人带头来去促成一些改变哦。那我们看到，其实，在缅甸政变之后，其实当地的年轻人其实也很快速的去组织起来，然后去针对这个军政府的事情，然后去做非常多的一些抗议啊等等。泰国其实也有很多类似的这样年轻人去主导的一些运动哦，针对这个他们现在的现象，甚至我们看到伊朗啊等等也都有类似的状况。那所以其实我们的确还是看到说，虽然在整个国际的情势好像是在一个整个越来越倒退，甚至我们也看不到说多边主义、联合国啊这些重要的国际机构，它到底扮演了一个什么样的角色，可以去弥补这些倒退的人权现象？但我们的确看到，很多时候是年轻人反而站出来，然后去organize 的一些很及时的，可能在网络上面，然后或者是说，就真的就走上街头了，然后去批评现在的这个现况，然后去抗议。那所以这个是非常及时的，而且也是非常快速的去动员哦。那当然也是因为这个网络的科技的这样一个崛起，我觉得当然也去促成了这个整个青年族群的这个动员是更有效的哦。那我们当然也看到说，那这个是非常有潜力的，就是说我们怎么样在要去对抗所谓的威权主义的崛起的这个状况底下，年轻人、年轻世代怎么样去跟他们结合，然后去透过他们参与，我觉得这个我们其实在过去的很多历史上已经看到，就是他们都已经实际在参与这个去争取，去把我们的倒退的人权把它要回来的这样的一个过程里面是很重要的角色，所以我们也必须要持续的在跟年轻的社群、年轻的世代有更多的结合，才有办法去对抗现在这个整个越来越崛起的这样的一个威权主义的实践哦。那当然我们也看到说，当然科技的数位的这样的一个议题，的确在年轻世代上面，因为他们是数位的，就是他们出生的时候就已经都有网际网络了，所以的确是很顺利的在运用这些相关的科技等等。但的确我们也看到说，科技所带来的相关的人权的议题，它的复杂面向，当然它有它正面的部分，就是它让大家更快速的去取得资讯。好，我的时间到了。好，那也这个更快速的可以动员哦。可是我也想要去强调是说，在这个我们的这个网络啊科技的这样的一个年代里面啊，其实我们1948年所通过的世界人权宣言里面所讨论的这个人权的定义，包括言论自由是什么，包括这个 监控隐私权是什么？其实那个整个定义都已经跟1948年是很不一样了。它其实是需要重新再被检视的。像我们在看待仇恨言论，到底要怎么去处理，怎么去规范？那可能我们还需要非常多，像是刚刚讲到的假讯息、假资讯等等的这些议题。那这可能都是过去在这个世界人权宣言定定出来的时候，其实他们都还没有经历过的这些议题哦。那所以在这个年代里面，我们在讨论人权的议题里面，我们其实会需要蛮多更新的国际法的一些分析的工具。那与其就是静静的去让我们去有更好的一个，不管是机制也好或工具也好，然后才有办法去捍卫我们现在看到的整个人权倒退的现象。谢谢。
好，那我们接下来请这个来自于马来西亚的卡希尔。
谢谢。Thank you very much for the introduction. I just wanted to sort of kind of introduce myself as well because it'll be relevant to what I will be touching upon a little bit later. So I grew up in Malaysia. I'm from Malaysia, but I'm also, I've lived in Australia for about 9 years now. So I actually flew in from Australia to Taipei for the first time. I'm one of the delegates here for the youth camp and have the honour and privilege to speak to you. So thanks to the organiser for the opportunity. I wanted to preface by saying that ASEAP, our organisation, the ASEAN Australia Strategic Youth Partnership, is a not-for-profit organisation based in Australia. We're registered in Australia, but I'm here today as a delegate, and I guess I want to preface by saying that the views I express are my own. And so I'm also a lawyer by profession. That is my day-to-day job. I'm a tech and privacy lawyer, so really good to know that there's another lawyer on the panel here as well. And I wanted to just focus on kind of what is the changing world order here. And particularly, I want to start from the last question around how things have changed or some of the key trends that we see post-pandemic. I think one of the things that we have seen accelerated right after the pandemic, right after COVID, was the regulation of the internet. And I think from a youth perspective, we see young people seizing that space, the internet, as a sacred place for people to express their voice and express their opinions. And I wanted to give some examples a little bit later, but from the perspective of Malaysia, there's been a few proposals that the government was trying to implement. Some of them have been backtracked because of massive public outrage, and I'll touch upon that a little bit. But I think the social media age and the internet has been regulated not just in Malaysia, but also in Australia. And let me start with Australia. So Australia recently passed a law that bans social media for people under the age of 16, right? So social media companies will be fined if minors under the age of 16, if they don't take steps to prevent people under the age of 16 from accessing the internet. The law will come into effect December this year. That's one example. In Malaysia, the government has recently implemented a social media licensing regime as a way to force social media companies that have over 8 million users, to obtain this license to operate in Malaysia. And what it does is it forces social media companies to moderate the content, to take down illegal content or harmful content. Now, on the other hand, you have Australia, which has also recently passed the world's first law on cyber abuse scheme. It allows the government, through the e-safety commissioner, to issue removal notices to take down contents that are deemed harmful or unlawful. And this was recently tested in the federal court in Australia, where there was this person that was attacking another transgender person online as a troll. The federal court ruled that the e-safety commissioner did not have the authority to issue that removal notice because there was no serious intention to cause harm. But these are just some of the examples that I wanted to highlight, and for young people to think about, where I think the post-pandemic world, there's been an increasing, I guess, in terms of the misuse of the internet, but also the regulation around that. And so I want to tie this back to our organisation, the ASEAN Australia Strategic Youth Partnership. So last year, we hosted a conference in Bangkok, in Thailand, focusing on online youth safety. We worked together with the E-Safety Commissioner of Australia. So we hosted that in Bangkok with 6 other countries. So there's Malaysia was one of the countries there. We had 24 delegates. But the intent that we were trying to do is to get young people to talk about how do we regulate online safety to protect human rights and also to empower young people. And so the delegates came out with what we would call resolutions. So we did a model UN-style conference. People come and negotiate and pass resolutions. And the 2 main things that I wanted to highlight here is that the delegates, wanted to see a rights-based approach in regulating the internet, which means that the way that we regulate the internet must be consistent with human rights. It should not violate basic human rights. That is established. The next thing that the delegates wanted to propose was to allow social media companies or to legislate social media companies to allow them or to mandate them to embed safety by design, which means that your product or your online service, services or platform should naturally, as a starting point, be developed with privacy and safety in mind. So it shouldn't be, privacy and safety should not be an afterthought. It should be inbuilt in your product. It should be inbuilt in your online platform. And so these are some of the examples here. But I also just want to talk about the role that young people played in Malaysia, particularly around COVID and in response. I know my time is up, and I'll talk more about the role of young people a little bit later. But this is just kind of the key areas that I wanted to focus on in our discussion today. Thank you.
So good afternoon, everyone. My name is Hoài Anh Lê. Actually, currently, I am a master's student at University of Padua, and my majors, just introduce myself a little bit. And my majors is human rights and multi-level governance. So my background is about international law. And actually, currently I am a master's student. However, I also doing some initiative about youth-led movement funded by EU delegation to Vietnam. It's a co-leader Vietnam Youth Advisory Board by EU delegation to Vietnam. And I also have advocated many initiatives and policy on many master about youth development and labor workforce in Vietnam, green jobs, and even something like youth advocacy and So that's why I think that my past I will share a lot about my experience and what I think about how the Vietnamese government have to support Vietnam youth-led movement and show you some examples, specific examples, so you guys can see the whole pictures of how youth-led movement in Vietnam is transitioning right now and how we can be, how the government hear our voice, the youth. And actually, I'm the youth. Yeah, I'm just 24 years old, quite young. So let me talk a little bit about how the youth. I have some slides. So can you guys show my slide for me? Just some picture about some platform I want to share with you guys about how Vietnamese government is working for to collect data. Listen to the voice from the youth and support the youth-led movement like me. I'm working for EU delegation to Vietnam. Yeah. So honestly, I have to say that youth in Vietnam is really quite active and really have a lot of youth in Vietnam is really quite active right now. They have done a lot of movements, and additionally, in Vietnam a couple years ago, 3 years ago, we have a movement about LGBTQ+. So next slide, please. No, next. Yeah, this is campaign, a very big campaign in Vietnam about LGBTQ plus rights. And you know what? It's issued by institution named ISEE in Vietnam. And do you know what's like story behind this? This campaign were talking about like one really really hot topic and one question like if LGBTQ plus is a disease, should we need apply for medical leave for treatment? So that's the question at that time. 3 years ago, we like questioning a lot about this question. Like if LGBTQ plus is a disease, should we need to apply for a medical like leave for treatment? So you know what? We have collected a lot of data, and I will relive the total exact number. It's 70,000 people, and all of them are youth, and they have to support they have to collect data through hidden cameras, and they went to their work office, their school, and asked their teachers, their bosses that they needed a medical leave because they want to go to the hospital to check their disease. So when their bosses and their teachers asked, which disease should you want to apply for? They said that I am LGBT, I'm gay, or I am les. So yeah, this mess only confidential, only information about who get in, who was the volunteers information was kept confidential. And this campaign, then this video, because I cannot show you the whole video because it's made in Vietnamese. And when this video was released, it brought a lot of opinions, a lot of comments, a lot of concern through youth, and additionally from the governments. So 3 years ago, the Vietnamese government, especially the Ministry of Health, have released their official statement that LGBT plus kills is not a disease, and it should not be treated. So yeah, so it's just like a victory of like LGBT plus like community. So it just I think this is very specific example to show like how the youth can be like how big we can, how great we can, like the youth. And honestly, one of my friends have done these campaigns. So that's why I haven't known about this information. So here I am to share with you guys. And additionally, I also want to share another initiative. So could you back the slide with a Vietnamese title? Yeah. So this one is also a youth-led initiative in Vietnam, led by UNICEF and Youth Union, Vietnam Youth Unions. So it's this platform was made to collect data from the youth about their mental health, their opinions on various matters about the governments, are they happy with this policy, or are there any policy they want to comment, or even do they want to change anything from the constitutional, anything like constitutions, anything like laws they want to do they want to raise their voice, any matters. So actually, this is my test. I did this survey. So I have reported to the government some matters on my mental health, and I really want the government should have supported more and more fundings and more concern on just less initiative on mental health, because actually I have done some initiative with EU delegations, but all of them are like about green job and something really about economics. And so I think that through my examples, you can see very specific how youth left movement is transitioning and shifting in Vietnam right now. We use a lot of technology and a lot of platform. And so thank you so much for your listening. Thank you.
已经做了跟我们做了分享。那我想根据这个指派给我的工作哈，就是我先要对他们这个提问哈，然后再开放给这个大家提问了哈。所以我简单就几个问题想要请教哈。首先要请教这个赖佑豪先生，就是其实你跟刚刚的这个其实他现在已经在澳洲，就是那个凯夏，对你们两位都是律师，都是研究这个科技的哈，对，可是你们的这个分析的角度是不太一样。那我想请教佑豪的是说，你是不是在一次的 RESCOM 的这个会议里面看到很多不同的国家，他们有提到说，虽然这个 AI 或者是网络这个收集的资讯带给民主的一些进步，可是相对的也带来了监控跟这个隐私权的这个被收集了哈，被收集，所以我想请教的是说，你怎么样去看待，就是现在的青年呢，他们的公民参与的形式跟别人不太一样。那在数位威权主义之下，怎么样重塑这个这个亚洲的法律环境，特别是在言论自由跟资讯获得的这个部分，对。
So thanks for the question. I understand the question. There's only 3 minutes. Okay, I understand the question in two parts, and that's already assigned by the event organizer. The first one is, how do we see the notion of human rights evolving in the digital era, especially in terms of digital privacy? And because I only have 3 minutes, I'm gonna only answer this question. And I want to do a quick question for you all. Please raise your hand if you use like AI chatbot like ChatGPT every day. Please keep your hand raised. Okay, and no, wait a second. Keep your hand raised. And please continue to keep your hand raised if you ever read the privacy policies from those tech companies. Maybe only a few of them. And please keep your hand raised if you believe they will only collect data they claim to collect on those privacy policies. Oh, okay, none of them, none of you. Yeah, so there's a trust issue for those tech companies. Pretty sad. Okay, but what I want to say here is that for AI, there are 3 core elements to support its data operation. The first is algorithm, and the second is computing power, and the third is data. And because privacy is mostly related to data, so I will only focus on data today. So, and what I want to say is that data is almost everything for AI, because the more data it has, the better and the more accurate it performs, it works. So data has become a critical resources that has been extracted and then turning into economic, political and knowledge power concentrated in the hands of government and tech companies. But at the same time, we're witnessing the traditional understanding of privacy is not, it might not working anymore, because just like what we've seen, it feels like once you accept the terms of services, or once you acknowledge the privacy policy and use the products, the companies are free to collect whatever they want to collect from you. And it actually assumes that we can only rely on, or we mainly rely on ourselves to control over personal data. But that is not working anymore because there are at least two reasons. The first is that we can see the ongoing massive daily data collection that happens without our knowledge or even consent. And the second is that AI can infer and can find the hidden patterns in data, and also to predict sensitive things about you without you realizing it. So time's up, but I'm gonna conclude that. So we need to imagine something beyond this. We need to imagine something beyond personal control or personal consent model. We need to establish a safe structural safeguard to rebalance the concentrating power in the hands of government or the corporate. And that requires us to establish or to require the organizations that hold and collect and process data to be held accountable. And we also need to require the government to take more proactive role to establish a proper oversight on it. So that's basically something I can think of at this moment. And for the rest of the question, maybe we can discuss later.
刚才其实分析了地缘政治跟中国的人权的状况，还有武装冲突的可能会引起的一些人权的问题哈。那我想请教，就是说现在这个中美竞争格局之下，怎么样影响到亚洲的民主发展跟人权的空间？那青年应该在这样的国际情势当中，怎么样找到行动的这个空间跟策略？那台湾的青年在国际倡议当中又可以扮演什么样的一个角色？
我想有一点非常重要哦，就是因为在中国对台湾的这个压力之下，那我们要进一步的来了解中国对台湾的意图跟手段。我想它的意图非常明显，但在手段上面，它相对之下是比较灵活一些哈。那我之所以称它为灵活，是因为它不单单是有军事手段，它也有经济手段。更重要的是，包括刚才佑豪也特别提到，就是中国对台湾进行的这种统战的方式，就 United Front 的方式。那这个部分它其实是试图方方面面的渗透到台湾的各个社会之中。所以整体来讲，我们必须要有一个很强的一个免疫力。那如何培养免疫力呢？我个人认为有几点是必须值得进一步的来这个来这个推展的哈。第一个，我想非常重要就是媒体识读，因为我们都知道，包括我们前面所提到的，不管是 disinformation 或 misinformation， 它其实里面都涉及到一个非常关键的 information 本身是一件事，但是我们怎么去理解它，怎么去诠释它，又如何的 digest 这些 information， 其实才是关键。所以我们必须时，尤其是我们青年朋友们就是要能够进一步的来分辨，在这些这么众多的讯息当中，尤其是在这个媒体资讯爆炸的年代里面，我们怎么样去 tease out 什么东西是 truth， 什么东西是 fabricated？ 我觉得这个部分是非常非常重要的。那另外一方面就是我们在做这样子一个媒体识读的过程当中，我们要能够理解，从中国的角度来看，基本上他要制造一个想要建立一个 United Front， 他不会只有在单一面向上。换句话说，他不一定永远都是说自己的好话。这是一种 narratives， 但是其他的 narratives 我们可能也要特别留意。为什么？因为它的终极目标是要降低它未来控制台湾的成本。那这里面呢，就会出现一个现象，它有可能就是要制造我们内部的一个混乱。因为从他的角度来讲，他觉得这样是对他是最有利的哈。所以这个地方你就会看到，这个中国在很多的面向上面，它都有各种不同的尝试跟这个触角。所以我觉得从我们青年朋友的角度来看，除了刚才我所提到的，我们要随时提醒自己以外，更重要的是彼此之间要有所谓的 information sharing 或是 experiences sharing 的一个角度。换句话说，不同的国家其实大家现在都面临这种来自各个方面的假讯息，我们彼此之间怎么样把所谓的 lessons learned 来跟大家一起来做一个分享，我觉得这一点是非常重要。所以青年跟青年之间，好朋友们包括今天来自各个不同国家，今天齐聚一堂的朋友们，未来如果对这个议题领域大家有兴趣的话，我建议大家不妨就是可能透过这个社群媒体啦，拉一个群组，在这个结构下面在今天大家已经熟识的情况之下，以后大家来分享，在你的国家里面，你面对这样的现象，你有没有这个第一个能够 identify 这些挑战，第二个就是你们如何来应对这样的挑战，彼此互相学习借鉴。谢谢。
想要请教的是国际特色组织的这个分会的邱秘书长哈，就是你刚才有提到这个民主倒退当中，这个数位监控的扩张跟言论自由的这个受限的这个趋势呢，你认为青年怎么样在保护公民空间跟资讯自由得到平衡？好，对。然后也想请教说，那国际特色组织是不是要重新调整你们的策略，来回应青年关注的新兴的人权的议题？有没有特别对于或者跟青年一起来定义这些新兴权利的这些内涵？
好，其实我们现在我们的那个全球的这个大会已经有规定，就是说我们现在每个分会要去参加我们的会议的时候，都一定要有一位青年代表，而且是25岁以下的青年代表。所以就是其实国际组织已经非常重要，在意识到说青年在整个社会运动，在整个社会的变革里面所扮演的重要角色。那也因此，我们希望是可以把年轻人的声音纳入，甚至是一起加入决策的这个机制里面的。那所以的确我们是不断的在去审视说，到底我们现在在讲的这些诉求啦，在呼吁这些事情，到底是不是真的也同样是年轻世代所看到的一样的问题？那当然在这个数位年代里面，的确监控跟言论自由的议题的确是很重要的议题但在我看来，它不见得是什么平衡的问题，而是到底就像可能像刚刚又好讲的，我们到底要怎么样让这些大型的科技公司或者是这些数位平台，他们要负起他们的人权责任，甚至我们要怎么样让国家在这里面，它可以不侵犯言论自由，可是它又必须要保护到大家的隐私权，或者是对啊，就是它就是需要被平衡的，其实是这个立法的部分的技术。那年轻人在这边其实就是如果当这些东西真的有被保障了，那当然大家就可以比较自由的、比较安全的去使用这些科技的工具那但是的确，我们现在会看到说，因为其实国际特色组织之前发表了蛮多的一些像就是跟恶意监控软体有关的报告，像飞马Pegasus 或者是就是很多的这些恶意监控软体，其实不管是越南政府或者是俄罗斯等等很多的国家的政府都在使用这一些就是发展越来越厉害的监控软体去监控大家的手机大家的电脑然后当我们在运用这些数位的平台去串联去发表我们的言论的时候，那这个时候，比如说我们就之前就看到，脸书、Meta 他们其实就跟越南政府合作，要求他们把很多的这个 blogger 的这些 user 的 IP 等等都要提供给他们。那他们也因为这样子去逮捕了非常多的良心犯，或是把很多的内容都下架了。那甚至是之前我们也看到说，也有很多政府用这个飞马的这个侵入性很强的软体去逮捕了非常多国家的律师或者是人权工作者新闻记者等等。但是政府当然都否认说他们有使用这些东西。那之前其实泰国也有一个案子，就是去控告说泰国政府有使用这样的工具，但是也很遗憾的其实是败诉的，因为你要去证明这件事情也不是这么容易那所以的确在这个时候，我们刚刚提到说国际法，或者说我们现在拥有的这个国际的公约的这些现有的架构里面，对于这些所谓的大型的科技公司，其实我们可以使用的工具是很有限的，因为过去很多国际公约它针对的对象是政府，并不是企业，所以今天但是现在这些大型科技公司，他们所拥有的 user 的资料，其实可能比每一个国家、每个政府所拥有的公民的资料 都还要多，他们的利润、他们的盈余也可能比一个国家的 GDP、一个国家的收入都还要高。那为什么他们不需要负起责任哦？那所以我想，这当然也是现在联合国或者是欧盟，其实也有不断的在讨论蛮多的一些相关跟数位平台相关的立法，或是人工科技相关的立法，甚至是对企业与人权的这个 due diligence 的一些立法哈。那可能都是我们整个国际的，不管是在公约法律架构上，甚至是在保障机制上面会需要去改善的。
然后，我们也想请教这个希卡尔哈，你在澳洲现在也是律师职业嘛哈？那你刚才也提到了很多澳洲的做法，比如说怎么样或者是马来西亚的做法，对于网络有一些限制，有一些监控。那我还是要问说，那对于年轻人来说，这些的监控，比如说16岁以下不能使用社群媒体，这样子跟言论自由或者是他的创意思考，会不会有一些那澳洲是怎么样面对这样子的青年，到底有没有什么样的反应？
Thanks for the question. The majority of Australians support the law. I think the statistics that I saw recently was 88% of Australians support the law. But at the same time, civil society groups are also raising concerns about the law because the implications that it has. Why are we isolating people under the age of 16 from accessing social media platform? That's number one. And then the other thing as well is that because of how the way that it is defined, what is actually caught by the law is uncertain. Recently, the minister, I think, made a statement about how YouTube might potentially be exempt from the application because it is predominantly educational purposes, but then that is not stated in the law. And as lawyers, you will know if it's not stated in there, like they can change their mind and say, oh, actually, it will form part of the ban. So that's, from that perspective, I think that's just for context. In terms of what the youth has said about it, I don't think I have heard a lot about the voices of the youth in this space. And I think I just kind of want to draw the difference there a little bit. I think Australians tend to be a little bit more, what's the right term to describe? For a lack of a better term, a bit more passive. Because I wanted to talk about Malaysia. So when the government tried to propose a law which is effectively the domain name system redirection, this was proposed, I think, end of last year or the start of the year. Essentially what it does is that it redirects content that the government deems illegal. For example, they said that they were regulating illegal gambling sites. So what it does is that when you enter into the address, it leads you to a different page. The concerns that people had was that this is effectively, a very powerful tool because it can effectively, redirect media network to another page. You're banning people's ability to access the internet freely. And so then the government backed down because there were massive outrage and people were voicing concerns over that. So then the government withdrew that policy, which I think is terrible if it were to be implemented. You can have all the best intentions, but as I said earlier, I think it is very important that laws are drafted in a way that is consistent with human rights. That is a rights-based approach in regulating, issues that we face online or offline. But I also just wanted to talk about the role of youth in protecting human rights and advancing democracy. So during COVID, Malaysia witnessed a lot of political uncertainty at that time because of change of government. We had 3 different prime ministers over the span of, I think, 3 years. And because of the mismanagement of COVID pandemic, death cases were rising like crazy. My time is up. I'm going to wrap up there. So what the youth did was that because young people were able to organize, they took it to the streets. So they went to the streets to protest against the government, call for the Prime Minister to resign. Now, why did I bring that up? Because the youth participated in the protest, they wore masks, they observed social distancing, but most importantly, they were there because older generations, so people that are a little bit older who are vulnerable, did not have the opportunity to participate in the protest. So it was entirely youth-led protest that effectively, what came out of that was that the Prime Minister resigned a few days later. So that was, I think, a success story of how, obviously, I don't think the Prime Minister resigned because of the protest, but I think that was one of the factors that the Prime Minister resigned after that. And so clearly, the youth played a role in protecting their own rights and civil liberties. Yeah, thank you.
好像都也比较在网络跟言论自由的部分。那也许这个李怀英可以告诉一下你们在越南怎么样去有什么样的青年有什么样的行动对越南政府做什么样的改变？因为刚刚也提到很多，包括越南的劳动力啊、青年的倡议啊，想这个部分是不是也再给我们多一点的分享
Yeah, so Xie, thank you for your question. So so for me, like youth action, sorry, could you repeat your question?
越南的青年在最近有什么样的一些倡议的活动？对于越南政府，对。
Okay, so thank you for your questions. I get it. Through your questions, I also would like to share with you guys about Vietnamese like app. Yeah, so how we send out like comments, our opinion to the governments. Actually, I have to say, in the past, almost Vietnamese like you, like me, like just didn't know how to like raise their voice and raise the awareness of their power and the rights to raise with the governments. However, like I think that technology after post-COVID-19 pandemic have changed a lot of our mindset and the way we engage, interact with the governments. 3 years ago too, the Vietnamese governments have launched an e-website named e-government portal. So at this website, we have a chance and an opportunity to comment and try and comment and put our emails to the website and say that on everything I haven't. We think that it's really need to change and modify. So a couple months ago, 3 months ago, I have reported some comments about of this website about amendment on our government's constitution amendments. So yeah, I think that so that's I think a very specific example. So how Vietnamese young people are doing and raising and voicing to the governments. So governments really try our best to engage directly. But the problem here is the Vietnamese government, especially I think like 80% doesn't realize their powers, their rights, and how can engage and directly to raise their voice. So that is my mission now. I try to advocate for these problems. So that's it. So I think it really, yeah. So I think in the future I really hope that the government can have more like youth advisory boards like I am doing for the EU delegation right now. So yeah. So I just like have stay a really positive positive viewing about the future for this changing and for this one, for this for the situation you asking for me. Okay. So thank you.
都问完了哈，所以现在是开放这个我们今天的来宾、今天的参与者一起来可以来发问哈，因为刚刚5位都已经在怎么样在动荡的这个国际秩序当中，怎么样去做人权的实现跟挑战，他们也给了非常多的想法跟观点哈跟做法，所以我们现在想请问好，下面已经有人举手举得很高，麻烦这个发问的人先说一下你的这个背景哈，然后简要的说明一下你的问题，然后说你到底想问谁哈。
好，大家好，我是亚洲公民未来协会执行长林文亮，然后非常感谢台亚会跟国家人权委员会办这个很重要的活动。然后我们的机构其实是在做推动台湾社团人团法的修正，然后是几个目的，一个当然就是去威权化，因为这个法律其实相对的比较久，然后里面还是有很多管制的思维。那第二个是透过保障外国人来台湾结社，透过修缮这个法律，让它更符合人权的原则，来保障外国人在台湾结社的权利。那第三个，当然这样的修改会让台湾的公民空间、公民社会更加的多样化。那当然，在各位刚刚的分享当中，我们也知道面临的非常多的问题，但其实这个倡议在过去台湾人权促进会10几年的倡议以来都一直在进行，也不是一个非常新的议题。那今天的题目是青年运动跟台湾与东南亚跟东亚的交流嘛？那以我们自己工作的这个例子，然后来回应这个问题，其实我们也看到很多正面的发展。但是我觉得非常希望跟大家更多的交流。那我们看到一个局限的警讯，其实也是我们过去跟人权委员会有交流过。其实是在过去区域中担任那个公民社会的 hub， 这个很重要的一些公民空间都紧缩了，包含曼谷、包含雅加达、包含马尼拉。那我们在这个背景跟脉络跟这个 crisis 下面，我们台湾可以扮演什么角色？这个也是我们机构过去3年，在各个层次去想象去回应的问题。那这几年其实有非常恶化的发展，在过去3年当中，一个是我们看到泰国在2020年的时候有一个 NGO 法案，但是在换政府国会换届的时候，那个法案胎死腹中，但他们又推了新的法案。那在这个新的法案当中，我们看到了一个跟台湾有点关系，但当然不直接有关的东西，就是泰国在新的这个 NGO 的草案当中，把创立一个非盈利的机构的门槛设为30个发起人。那我相信这也是我们台湾，尤其肖董事长跟很多长期关注公民社会的人非常敏感，对这个数字一定非常敏锐。那为什么东南亚国家从以前创一个 NGO 只要3个人、5个人，最多的马来西亚也只要7个人？那现在泰国有的草案是30个人，那这个数字是我们在台湾创 NGO 的青年跟公民社会伙伴非常担忧的一个趋势。那在印尼、马来西亚也逐步看到要针对 NGO 的创立进行管制。那这些消息其实我们都是早于很多的 INGO 去掌握跟理解。那这个东西也是非常立基在我们跟当地的青年组织，还有年轻的研究者的串联，跟我们日常联系中，其实也像刚刚那个卢副执行长提到的，我们私底下有机的这种串联网络，其实消息的传递是很快。所以这个是我对今天这个题目的回应，也顺便跟大家讲一下，其实我们台湾是一个民主的国家，很注重人权，但我们自己也有很多，甚至不用去非常的 innovative 的题目，光是在传统反对威权的这个集会结社自由方面，我们也还有很多可以继续努力，而且透过这个角度跟东南亚串联的机会。谢谢大家。那这个是个分享，也是个问题。那就在场有AI 的邱玲执行长或卢老师，应该这个题目也都非常的有深耕，也可以继续交流。
OK， 好，那我们问3个问题，然后再一起回答，好不好？还有没有要提问的？没，好，这位先生来。
Hello, this is Carlos from the Philippines. Thank you once again for the very insightful lecture. The question can be answered by any speaker as it's more generic, but if there's anything that I was able to learn from an insight is that every generation has their specific way of perceiving or framing the problem, especially about human rights. And I really think there's a generational divide on how we approach these topics. Maybe the older generation tend to be more conservative about these topics, while the youth is very, very progressive in nature, to the point that sometimes we perceive them to be radically progressive. So the question is just that, how can we minimize that gap or that divide so that we can bridge together the different perspectives that comes from the vast generations that are currently talking about this topic in status quo? Thank you.
很好的问题哈，还有这位，好，后面，哎，后面这，我们三个问题就开始。
All right, so hello everyone. My name is Nuraisha. I'm from Malaysia. I'm a law student. So basically, this question could be answered by all of the panelists, but I was looking forward to hear from the lawyer on the stage. So the question, like Mr. Paul has pointed out, that law that being enacted must be consistent with human rights. But we can see now it is impossible, as what Mr. Yao Hao Lao just mentioned, like the Yaya, which is the influencer that being deported. Here we can see her right, which is the freedom of speech, is being compromised, but as well as her content, which is like pro-China content, is can be deduced as a threat to national security. So my question is that how do we, and like how and where can we find a middle ground? And do we as a youth can play a role in contributing to find such middle ground, aside from doing protests, or like maybe something that we as a youth can do it more effectively and consistently to contribute? Okay, that's all.
OK， 还有吗？好，没关系，他问完了以后，我们再一起答好了。
Hi. First of all, thank you so much for that discussion of yours. So we learned a lot from it. I am Christine, by the way, from the Philippines. So while the topics were very interesting, there's something that caught my interest. That was about the regularization of social media in particular countries. So this question is intended to our lawyer in the panelists. So while the removal of unlawful content on social media is intended to uphold national standards, could it also be perceived as a way to restrict access to diverse perspective, thereby shaping public perception according to the government's preferred narrative? It's like limiting the audience on what they want to see in the social media, because if we will limit, for instance, we will hide this kind of content because it's not appropriate, are we also limiting them to see the different side? So that's my question. Thank you.
我们还是先回答一下好了。第一个问题就讲到这个，台湾还是有这个轮团法，哈，对，社团法，然后有限制30个人发起人，这个我觉得好像我们倡议了20年有吧，20年还是30年嘛，现在还是维持这样。所以这个问题就想请卢老师还有邱执行长，你是不是可以来回答这个问题？第二个呢，就是有谈到世代有差异了，哈，但是我也并不觉得我们这些老 Coco 的人解决问题的方式会比较保守哈，对，那我不服老 ，OK， 好，但是我觉得这个问题，也许我们5位来宾都可以回答简要的回答。第三个呢，就是谈到菲律宾的这个问题，这也是一个很好的问题。这个也是请卢老师跟这个又好，然后说不定那个邱执行长也可以回答一下。第4个问题呢，maybe 可以这个问题也蛮好的，也许每个来宾都可以回答一下，但是这样子可能就没有办法再继续了哈。好，那我们先请这个卢老师回答第1个问题。
谢谢文亮执行长哦，这个也很高兴再次跟您见面哦。我想您点到一个蛮重要的，我想大概几个部分来回应。第一个就是台湾可以做一些什么？我觉得我们这边当然 可能政府的政策有一些方面的思考，但是我觉得作为一个民间的社团或是智库或是 NGO 等等，我觉得有很多地方是我们大家可以进一步来加强合作的。那我觉得 bottom up 的这个 process 永远都会比 top down， 我自己会更 prefer 啦哈。那另外第二个就是我觉得我们NGO 在推动民主或者是提倡人权的部分，我觉得我们大家也可以一起来思考有没有一些新的 momentum。好，就是您刚才提到这个议题其实非常非常的重要。那配合这个新的时事或是时态的发展，我觉得应该有一些地方是可以这个进一步来合作来回应的。好，那有关于这个台湾这边 NGO 的发展，我个人是认为NGO 从 democracy promotion 的角度来看，我觉得 NGO 传统上面它作为一个第三方，它会是一个 lapdog 的角色，会多watchdog 的角色会多于 lapdog 的角色，所以我一直都把它看成是一个民主的防腐剂。所以我觉得这个地方来说，我们应该要为让世界各国都跟台湾一样，可以有一个 vibrant civil society， 这个地方我们一起来努力。谢谢。
好，那的确，人民团体法跟甚至是集会游行法，这个我们今天是解严的日子嘛，哈，对，这些法案也都是解严之后才定出来的法，但很遗憾到现在也没有太多的修改。那我们过去会很常担心说，中国对于比如中国的网络安全法或中国的一些什么境外 NGO 组织的法，其实这些法案其实也对于这个亚太地区的这个相关的立法有很多的影响。那所以这其实也是一个竞合嘛。如果台湾我们想要扮演更重要的在亚太地区的一个领导者角色，而且是跟中国不一样的角色，那其实我们当然也会觉得说，那台湾政府或是我们的国会什么时候可以就是可以把这样的一个非常陈旧，其实也已经不符合现实的状况的这些法律，可以去进行一些 review。更何况台湾政府其实在香港的国安法通过之后，其实是大量的欢迎，就是说，因为当时就是包括我们组织在香港的分会跟区域办公室也都关闭了嘛，有非常多的 INGO， 这个也都因为这样子全部都关闭了。那其实都来到台湾，那这个亮亮也是有很多的东南亚的一些组织，他们其实也因为他们在他们的国家其实不安全，所以他们其实是想要来到台湾去比较安全的去继续进行他们的这些倡议的工作。那所以既然台湾是欢迎这些国际组织来到台湾生根，然后有一个安全的地方可以去继续拓展我们的这个人权的倡议的话，那的确其实可能也不是只有人团法啦，可能包括我们聘用外国人的相关的这些就业服务法，甚至是我们的税制等等，可能都会有一些需要配套的修改，因为它牵连的其实范围也蛮广的。所以的确就是如果台湾想要在亚太甚至是在国际上面，在公民社会的这个空间上面，不是只有我们自己很自由而已，而是我们想要带给整个区域更大的自由。那也许我们真的应该要想一下，说我们什么时候要来修改我们自己国内的法令，去带动整个区域有更自由的一个发展。
谢谢。这个是第一个问题的我们讲者的这个分享。然后第二个问题就是，他说这样世代这个有不同的解决的方式，那要怎么样缩小这个分歧？我们就从最年轻的这个讲者来吧哈，你先回答 ，OK， 我们就依序这样子 ，OK。
Okay, so thank you. So I think how about the different different generation solve the problem in different ways. So my answer is of course, because we can see the generation gap. So for me in Vietnam, like I will show really realistic example in Vietnam, because we have due to advocate for one statement like we really want to the government understand the youth like us, that because the youth is really different for the governments. So that's why the way the government to engage and to connect with us and communicating with the youth need to be in the different ways. So that everything we need to raise our voice with the governments. So I think it's of course that different generation will have different ways. So how to solve this gap is raise our voice raise our voice. Yeah, your voice really matters. And additionally, you also try to make people around you understand that, yeah, different generations have different point of views. So that's why you need to engage, communicate, and directly to contact people with different ways, and of course, like suitable. And yeah, so that's my question. That's my answer. So hopefully it can stop it can help. So thank you.
OK， 好。
Okay, I think maybe it's not so much about the approach that we solve things, but perhaps a little bit more around a priority of the issues. Young people have different priorities. People that of a different generation will have a different priority. And I guess the fact that we all have very diverse opinions up here, that's also because, you know, everyone has their own priority. And so, yeah, I think for young people, because we're digital native, that's the language that's been used to describe young people. You know, we grew up in the era where we use the internet. That's what we're exposed to. And so, obviously, the importance there would be like the internet era. And yeah, so I think, yeah, I hope that answers your question. But also, I just wanted to touch a little bit upon as well that when we talk about human rights, we also need to think about digital rights. Is that a human right, right? I think, as far as I remember, I'm not sure if I'm correct on this, but I think Finland is the only country that says access to internet is a human right. I don't know if there's any other country that does that, but the European Union has got a declaration on digital rights and principles, which basically sets out the same thing. In terms of what the United Nations has said on that, I think the United Nations Human Rights Council passed a resolution in 2016 condemning intentional disruption of the internet to suppress, you know, information or movements. But yeah, that's just a food for thought there.
对，我觉得必须要承认，一定是会有差异的，对对对。然后但是我们要怎么样去，就是一个是要先看见差异到底是什么，对啊，就是的确刚刚讲到的说，也许大家在挑这个要做的议题，其实可能就会有一些不同的选择跟标准。再来是解决的方法，我觉得有时候的确是，我们常常看到年轻人就是很快就冲到街头上面去了。那可能像我们的组织，我们要做好多的风险评估，我们要去看说那会不会被抓？然后这个法律的风险是什么？然后要做好多这个公民不服从的这些，其实后面所会带来的相关的这些风险。所以的确，我觉得就是他的确好像会考虑的比较多一点，但是年轻人就冲出去。真的不好吗？就是有时候我们的确看到说，像太阳花的时候，就是大家就冲进去了嘛。然后就，毕竟这个黑箱，就是这个贸易的这个中国跟台湾的这样的一个黑箱的服贸的事情，其实在过去可能 NGO 讲了好久都没有人关注到这件事情。突然年轻人冲进去国会，新闻就注意到了，国际媒体就注意到了，所以它的确可能也是一种突破的方式。那只是后续当我们也看到说，这个后来这个警察政报去，就是的确打了非常，就是行政院的那一次，就是真的打人啊、逮捕人啊等等，那也造成了非常多的年轻人的一些 trauma、一些受伤，甚至还有家属会觉得说，怎么没有保护好年轻人啊等等之类的。那所以就是我觉得这个东西就是的确还是就是的确是会需要再去，就是世代之间彼此怎么样再去多沟通，然后甚至是像这样的一个场合，或者说有更多的一些 workshop， 我们共同去讨论，不管是到底什么议题是我们现在这个世代我们要共同去面对的 priority 的议题，以及我们到底要用什么样的方法解决，是不是一定是这个过去的这种比较谨慎的方法才是对的，或者说我们就是一定要去做联合国倡议、国会倡议，有没有一些其他方法也可能就是可以很快速的去促成一些改变，这个都是有可能的。那我们的确会需要更多更有创意的一些 idea， 那所以的确也会觉得说，年轻人其实是勇于说出自己的想法，勇于去表达自己的不一样的看法，那这才有可能去让先看见差异，以及怎么样去找到大家觉得可以一起合作、一起共同往前去一起做 movement 的一个可能性。
对，要先看到差异。好，那么卢副。
OK， My short answer to respond to this question is talk to your parents. Talk to the senior members in your family. And then I believe you can find a middle ground. Thank you.
Hi, actually, I personally don't think you have to, or you need to seek the guidance from people on the stage before you taking action, because I believe like young generation is creative and smart enough to find or develop their own strategy to address this generational divide. But if you do want me to provide some strategies, I would say something. First, we can address that individually and also collectively. But individually, I will echo something Professor Liu just mentioned. Just go back to your homeland, trying to create a conversation with the senior generation in your family on the dinner table. For example, I'm going back to my hometown this weekend, and I got to meet my parents because I just came back from U.S. And I believe I'm gonna talk with them about the upcoming recall movement. Maybe they will see this as a chaos, or maybe they will see this as a justifiable movement. I don't know, but you won't know if you don't create that conversation. Then you will know the difference. Then you will know how to find a middle ground, and also building a mutual trust between each other, because you are not gonna convince them for the first try. But the key is to build that trust. That trust is also important. It's important at an individual level and also at the collective level, because trust is the public. Is an important capital, political capital for the democracy to find a middle ground, to make compromise, to be willing to listen to each other and to establish mutual understanding. So yeah, that's my brief answer to that. Thank you.
答2个问题，然后其他的你们就答最后一个问题就好了。OK， 好。
So should I go first?
对。
So actually, that is the hardest question. Maybe one of the hardest questions on this panel, and I'm gonna provide you with a typical law answer, legal answer. First, I believe that the speech is still protected. It should be protected, because without that kind of protection, democracy won't survive. Yeah, we still need to acknowledge that even such extreme speech should be protected and should be reviewed, should be justified. I mean, such the regulation should be justified. Then we'll know how to find a middle ground between the national security and also civil liberties. And the following thing, the key is that how can we make I would say the reasoning is important and the context also matters, because you won't find a general answers or general standards for every single cases like this. So you need to know how to make a good argument and make a good reasoning for or against such regulation. And context matters in the sense that I would say if the same deporting happened in the U.S. And based on also based on the national security ground, there will not be the same case as the one in Taiwan at this moment, because we're Taiwan, we're facing a strong external threats, maybe one of the strongest threats from the authoritarian camp. But in the U.S., they are deporting many minorities based on religious ground or ethnic ground. But is that the same case? Are they facing the same level of national security threats? I don't think so. So that's why I say that's an example of how to see the context behind the case. That is one thing. And also how this Chinese influencer, the context of behind her speech. did she receive money from China for saying that? Is something you need to examine. And also, is there any organizational connection between her and China? That also matters to see how to balance different interests in this case. And also, we also need to see this case through the examination of the principle of proportionality, in a sense like deporting her or after she says something like that, we're gonna put her in jail. It's different, right? And also like after she go back to China, can she still maintain the right to meet her children and family frequently? That is also something you need to consider. So something I want to say here is that the reasoning and also context, you need to put that into this case to see how to find the middle ground of that between national security and civil liberties. Sorry, I answered that too long. I'm gonna pause here.
Okay.
好 ，OK。
Okay. To me, I would say I'm cautiously optimistic about about the success in nurturing Taiwan's democratic resilience in the years to come. But having said that, I'm not saying that we can see that as a granted. To achieve that goal, I believe we need to work together to continue our commitment to democratic principles, to continue our efforts in strengthening civil societies. And also, very, very important, we need to continue to be engaged in open and inclusive dialogue about Taiwan's own future. So I think this is the case for each of you to take away, because Taiwan is in a very unique position in terms of world politics. Thank you.
对，我觉得其实因为这个雅案，虽然刚刚主持人叫我们不要回答，但这个案件其实在组织里面，其实不管是对也是讨论很多，我们其实没有正式发一个声明哦。但是的确，我觉得对啊，就是当我们要用国家安全去就是去惩罚一个人的时候，可能的确我们都还是会觉得说，那个法律的定义就是怎么样的状况底下，或是什么样的言论叫做会影响到国家安全，或者说我们是不是真的有证据去证明说他除了那个言论之外，他有没有其他的跟中国政府的关系，他真的是有影响到国家安全？如果有的话，那可能会不会是更可以去用这样的理由去剥夺他的居留权？因为毕竟剥夺居留权这件事情其实还蛮严重的。那更何况他是在台湾有家庭的人，然后对啊，什么样的东西会构成这样的犯罪，以及这个行为到底他会受到什么样的惩罚？其实，在法律上面是不是可以有更明确的定义？那让人民其实不管是哪一个国家的配偶，甚至是台湾人自己也好，都应该要有清楚的这样的一个认知。我觉得这可能是我们在法律规范上面是不是有可能可以再进一步去补足的。那我觉得另一个部分是，其实国际特赦组织在这些社群平台，就我们过去曾经做过一个报告，是关于在脸书上面，就是 Meta 就是很多的这个缅甸当地的这些人，他们在网络上面发表了这些仇恨言论，针对罗兴亚人的仇恨言论，造成了2017年的这个种族大屠杀的这样一个事情。我们整份报告在讲这件事情，所以真的也不要觉得说，一个网络上的言论好像没什么，它不会造成什么严重的人权侵害。其实，当今天就是有这么多的人一直在讲同样一件事情，而且是在鼓吹大家要去杀他们，要去放火烧他们的村子，要去强暴他们的妇女的时候，那整份报告其实就是在证明说，这样的仇恨言论它促成了真正的人权侵害，而这个是一个很严重的种族清洗。那所以我们的当时的诉求是要求 Meta， 就是这一个大型的企业公司，它应该要去赔偿罗兴亚人，他应该要去负起这个人权责任，在这里面不应该是这些社群平台、这些公司好像他都没他的事一样，对，所以我们还是觉得说，这个目前我们这些相关的法律规范仍然是，的确是还是没有，就是比较缺乏的，对。
Sorry, yeah, just very quickly, I'll address question 3 and 4 together. They're kind of related. in terms of, I think country sovereignty, as they're all discussed here, I think national security and sovereignty of Taiwan, that's, I think, indispensable, and it justifies some sort of action. In Australia, we have the world's first foreign interference law. The first person that was charged and sentenced to jail was someone linked to the CCP for covert operation of influencing the Minister of Immigration in Australia. He was sentenced to jail. So I think in terms of how we can improve the lawmaking process, in Australia there's the Human Rights Declaration. Every time a legislation is passed, the government has to prepare a Human Rights Declaration. Human Rights Compatibility Statement, which basically says that this law is compatible with human rights. In terms of addressing question number 4 around content removal, I don't want to, I guess, make a value judgment as to whether I agree or disagree with the law, but I will reiterate what Taiwan's digital minister said before, Minister Audrey Tang, that censorships are a non-starter. We cannot start from the position of censorship when you talk about how you want to regulate content. We all acknowledge that there's online harms that need to be addressed, but when we start with the position of censorship, that is the wrong first step, is what I would say. And I think that was what the minister said as well. But I think there is a limit to what you can say and can do. If you're inciting violence against a minority group, that, I think, something needs to be done there. Free speech has its limit. You can't incite hatred or violence against a particular group, right? We saw what happened with that in World War II. That's a whole history. And, as much as we protect free speech and we want people to have the ability to speak freely, there is a limit to that within the bounds of law. And this is where the concepts like rule of law and, everything that all becomes relevant. Thank you.
So actually, because I'm not a lawyer, so I think I cannot have the very specific point of view like the rest. So if I want to share something now, I just want to say that if we are the youth, so we should be careful about using AI or a social media platform. Yeah, because even though I know that our voice matters, but we should still be careful and aware about what we gonna say and what we want to advocate and what we want to protect. So so I think that's my comments or my ideas and my point of view for this. So thank you.
对不起，因为我看不到后面的那个钟，对，然后我手上又没有表，所以现在到了是那是不是时间到了 ？OK， 好，时间超过了，那我们那抱歉，但是我觉得今天的问题都很好，然后我们台上的讲者分享的也非常的精彩，我想给大家会有很好的启发。那我们这个 section 就这样结束，谢谢大家。
It is always challenging to the last speaker to deliver the closing remark because all the good point and also the encouraging remark have been made by previous distinguished panelists and speakers. So it's quite difficult for me to find a better remark comparing with my previous speakers. However, I have been puzzled during the session how I can contribute to the conversation and to make some different flavor to our discussion today. Well, definitely the contemporary challenge to human rights is universal, and the effort to safeguard the human right should also be universal. And our discussion earlier reflect a more internal and domestic perspective from within to discuss, to assess the progressive value of the human right. I would like to add something different to entertain all of the discussion today. As a scholar, I did research on the undersea cable. Recently, in recent year, Taiwan's neighboring water encountered the intentional attack against the international undersea cables. Some of them are the underwater infrastructure delivering the energy between Taiwan and our offshore island. And the others are operating the international business mission to carry out the digital communication and the technology matters. But how come this intentional attack against this underwater cable relate to the human right? My argument is this irrational and intentional attack against this undersea cable will impose the challenge to our digital lifeline, as well as to erode the accessibility of our digital human right. And that links the national security concern and also the protector of our individual human right. I think that's I try my best to echo and also to add some more different flavor from outside perspective, the external threat to the human right. And I would say it's also echo to the effort to safeguard human right being universal. Not only the case of Taiwan, but also the case of European country and also Southeast Asian country encounter those authoritarian attack, as well as the gray zone area tactic to cause the uncertainty on those underwater infrastructure issues. Definitely, we are born and live in a world, in an era that respects human rights and freedom. And for our young talents gathering here, naturally, you are used to live with freedom and human rights. Some of you may be aware of the dark history of past struggle against the dictator and also the authoritarian leaders, while some of the even younger friends may not. I believe that today is a long day with the on-site visit session in the morning and also the intellectual discussion and conversation in this afternoon. The morning session of site visit is a very unique experience of witnessing the dark age of human rights in Taiwan, and also I think they share some similar experiences and lessons among Southeast Asian countries. Even some of them are now in difficulty in safeguarding the national human rights development here in key Southeast Asian countries. And this afternoon forum, I would say it serves as an intellectual interface that invite multi-generational and multinational insight to enrich your understanding of the progressive value of human rights development in Taiwan and beyond. As mentioned earlier by Chairman Xiao in the opening remark, Taiwan's journey is a powerful testimony of national human rights development. And I do believe that through the discussion and conversation with the experts and practitioners and also the young leaders today, the youth delegate of 2025 SEASAT Youth Camp can act as a very strong advocate for a universal progressive human rights through ongoing through engaging with your cohort, that is your neighbors and your friends and roommates here, and to enable partnership with friends in Taiwan and beyond. And one more footnote, in closing, one more footnote that I learned from some of the conversation between our participants on the civil society connectivity and also the NGO gathering. Starting from 2025 this year, Taiwan-Asia Exchange Foundation shouldered the responsibility to practice the new southbound policy plus with specific focus on 3 meaningful corridor or the initiative, including the think tank corridor and youth corridor and also the NGO corridor. And with that, we are happy to organize the inaugural think tank summit in October this year. And we target that next year in 2026, we will be working with the like-minded institution in Taiwan and in the region to co-organize the civil society or the NGO Congress to invite more civil society leaders to join the conversation and also to chart the common future and blueprint for the democratic solidarity and also the cooperation. And also, in addition to the NGO Congress, we were also looking forward to work with more young leaders and dedicate to launch the youth Congress or Youth Summit sometime next year. So with that, please keep in mind that today's forum is not only meaningful gathering starting from last year and this year, it will be important foundation for the future cooperation among the stakeholder and like-minded friends. And with that, I would like to close my closing remark. And finally, I would, on behalf of the Taiwan-Asia Exchange Foundation, I would like to express our sincere appreciation to the National Human Rights Commission for the kind support for this 2-year, 2024 and 2025 multi-generational human rights forum. And that is very meaningful and also very encouraging for our young talent from the region. This year, we gathered 47 young delegates from 16 countries. That means that these young delegates will bring these important experiences, memory, and also the friendship back to their hometown and to enrich the local content of the progressive nature of national human rights development. And apart from that, please join me to thank the organizer, our team of the Taiwan-Asia Exchange Foundation in organizing this meaningful forum. I would like to recognize Sonia. So where's Sonia? Karen. And our MC. And some of our team is sitting in the back of this session, and they are paying attention to all the conversation and writing the report and the press release now. So without their commitment and their dedication, our forum cannot be that successful. So once again, please join me to thank all of the team and also thank all of the distinguished panelists for the wonderful and insightful remark, and also give yourself a big applause for our SEASAT Youth Camp young delegate for staying the whole day to join the on-site visit and also the very interactive discussion. With that, I thank you. Thank you very much.